Main switch is located on the behind panel of the dynamic flow bench. Turn on the main switch before positioning in the planned installation area. Adjust casters leveling pads. Before connecting the device to the main supply, check if the electrical installation of the bench matches the local mains voltage. Compressed air is supplied to the circuit through a 1-inch male inlet. The compressed air intake of the site must meet the following conditions: air pressure max 10 bars, air tank volume minimum 270 liters. We recommended a 500 liters volume depending on the quantity of benches connected, size of turbine examined, frequency and number of measurements taken, etc. Open the red lever to supply air in the bench from compressed air intake. Plug in each air hose in the correct seat on the operating area. Now you're ready to push on the power button and start your work. The power supply is confirmed by the lighting of the white control LED on the control panel. FlowD software auto run. If you want to run it manually, you can double-click on the RMAC icon, located in your desktop. You can log into FlowD software using your username and password provided by TurboRMAC. After login, account and setting menu will open. You can change languages by the drop-down menu in the language section. You can change your password using the edit password section. You can read bench details in the info section. Every time you start the machine and every time there is an alarm status, a red alarm icon will appear on the display. When the alarm status is active, you can disable it by pushing and turning counterclockwise the emergency button, then push the yellow reset button. After clicking on the alarm reset button on the screen, you can see the red alarm icon disappear. Now you're ready to open the home section and search your turbo code by using the numeric keypad. If the searched reference is not available, the request reference button will appear. By clicking on the request reference button, you will need to complete a form. Indicating the turbo code and, if known, the original code. By clicking on submit, the request will be sent. After carrying out the procedure, you will see the progress of the request by clicking on Check Requested References Status button. The request will have 3 states: red when is already requested, yellow when is in progress, green when is available. Once the reference has been entered, it will be available in the home section. When your reference is available, you can use it by clicking on the Use button and confirming the selection. If the operation is successful, you can see the turbo code on the top bar. Only one time at first switching on, you'll need to calibrate the bench. To do this, open the calibration section and take the calibration disc from the drawer on the left side of the bench. Put on the calibration disc on the air in hose and start the calibration procedure by clicking the Start button on the screen. If your calibration procedure fails, you can see red value in table data and on the top bar red T0 icon and test failed. You need to repeat the calibration test and set the correct value moving the red screw on the calibration disc. When your bench is calibrated, you can see value in table data in green and on the top bar green T0 icon and test OK. Next, you open Oil Management and click Oil On and wait the oil heating system to raise the temperature up to 50 Celsius degrees. Remember that you must keep the oil heating system on, otherwise you are not able to flow turbochargers. You can check for the correct adapters in the Flanges and Adapters menu before you set up turbocharger on the bench. View of the equipment already present in your bench. By clicking on the Request Tool button, a request for the needed adapter will be sent. After carrying out the procedure, you will see the new status, which will confirm you the request. As soon as TurboCharger staff will take and charge your request, you will see the new status, in progress. With a shipment by TurboCharger, following your request, the status will change to shipped. By clicking on the ship button, you could track the shipment. If your adapter is already present in your equipment, you will see the status equipped. The first step to set up the turbocharger will be by mounting oil out adapter. Then, you will be mounting the inlet oil connector. Now, you can insert the turbocharger in the universal holder in the operating area. Then, you will be mounting the magnetic air out adapter and magnetic air in adapter. You need to set the adapters in the correct position for the proper testing of the turbocharger. The last setup operation will be mounting the flow-out adapter on the matching flow-out hose and fix it on the turbocharger and connect the other hoses in the correct positions. To work properly, you need to connect the oil and supply pipe and the vacuum or pressure line. Now, you need to position the digital linear gauge aligned with the actuator movement range. If your actuator type will be a vacuum actuator, you need to push in the final part of the digital linear gauge to allow the measurement of movement. Now you're ready to open the actuator test section and start it by clicking on the Start button. There are two sections on the table data, on the left actuator value, in bar, and on the right, length value, in millimeters. If your actuator test fails, you can see red value in table data and on the top bar red T1 icon and test failed. You need to repeat the actuator test and set the correct value moving the screw on the actuator's arm. This operation gives you the possibility to increase or decrease the length of the actuator range, and influence the vacuum or pressure data. When your actuator will be correctly set, you can see green value in table data on the top bar, green T1 icon, and test OK. Another option that you could use is master cycle. By clicking on this button, you automatically repeat the test 3 times and save the test data in the corresponding columns. Now you're ready to open the flow test section, where you can choose manual test or automatic test. The main difference will be that in the manual test, you can tune the position of the actuator or VNT in real time during the test. By clicking the Step 1 button, you start the oil pump. You can see the oil pressure and the oil pressure gauge. When the bench reads the correct oil pressure value and the sensor of oil flow reads the correct drain from turbocharger to oil tank, the flow test starts. Step 1 equals VNT fully open, Step 2 equals VNT in the medium position, Step 3 equals VNT in the minimum position. There are 2 sections on the table data, on the left flow in value, in liter per minute, and on the right, actuator value, in bar. If your flow test fails, you can see red value in table data, on the top bar, red T2 icon, and test failed. The cycle starts by automatically setting the calibration pressure. You can see in the end pressure gauge. After that, values in the table will appear. If you are in manual test, you need to wait until the actual actuator value is in tolerance. After this flow in step, the value will be recorded in the flow in table. If your value will be in tolerance, green value, you will switch to the next step by clicking the Step 2 button and wait for the same conditions as in the previous step. If your value won't be in tolerance, red value, you will need to set the correct value by moving the screw on the actuator's arm. If you want to increase the value, you can extend the actuator's arm by changing the screw position. If you want to decrease the value, you can reduce the actuator's arm by changing the screw position. Your changes will be displayed on the flow and gauge in real time. When you're setting the correct value, you save this data by clicking again the Step 2 button. If your value will be in tolerance, green value, you will switch to next step by clicking the Step 3 button and wait for the same conditions as in the previous step. If your value won't be in tolerance, red value, you will set the correct value by moving the set screw on the bearing housing. If you want to increase the value, you can screw in the bearing housing set screw. If you want to decrease the value, you can unscrew the bearing housing set screw. Automatic test starts by clicking on Start Test button located under the Automatic Test menu. In this mode, the entire test cycle will be automatically completed, and it won't be possible to adjust the turbocharger VNT. Flow in chart will be customizable, you can turn on or off every graphic entries. Once the test is over, you can save a PDF report of your test. This is an example of PDF report. Before removing the turbocharger from the universal holder, we recommend you to clean the oil circuit by clicking on Oil Hose Clean. Now, to read your turbocharger rotor RPM, you have to paint a compressor blade with a white permanent marker. After this, position the optical speed sensor at a 3 to 5 cm distance from the marked blade. Push Set button on the optical speed sensor controller on the control panel. The set word will appear on the controller display. Turn the rotor from the turbine side and stop on any blade without the white mark. Push again Set button on the optical speed sensor controller on the control panel. A numerical value will replace the set word. Turn the rotor 360 degrees and check if the orange LED near the set button on the optical speed sensor controller turns on when the marked blade is pointed at. Instead of flow test, you can open dynamic flow test section. Here you can find the same buttons and operations as in the flow test section. This test includes also the speed value and flow out value from compressor side in the flow test section. This test will be very useful for understanding the performance of your turbocharger. You find a performance chart that shows you the speed/flow out ratio.